With the start of the Premier League right around the corner, it is time for predictions. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below whether you agree or disagree with our picks and your reasoning for the same. Let's kick it off. Number 20, AFC Bournemouth. With a poor transfer window so far with a few uninspiring incomings, Bournemouth are pretty much relegated to the thought of going back down to the Championship. We see no way that this club survives with really no reinforcements in key positions. 19, Fulham. Despite trying some transfer moves and bringing in Bernd Leno recently, Fulham still feel like favourites to go down. With Marco Silva in his second stint in the Premier League, we don't see him succeeding this time around either. Whether he gets sacked or not remains to be seen. 18, Nottingham Forest. While Forest had done quite the opposite of the prior two clubs, making multiple signings and bringing a few big names or at least promising players in through the doors, they still have seen way too much change in that squad to form any sort of consistency. With so many changes, it's hard to see whether the team can gel together and actually succeed and stay up in the league. They might just manage to evade relegation, but we don't think so. 17, Everton. Despite their transfer restrictions, the incomings of Tarkowski and McNeil are fairly inspired. But the loss of Richarlison might prove too important for them, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin not showing his consistency when it comes to injuries. That, combined with Lampard just not being that great of a manager, will probably see Everton be down in that relegation battle again. Yet the quality of their squad will probably manage to hold them up. 16, Southampton. It seems like forever ago that we thought Southampton would eventually make that move up into the top 10 of the table. But that has not happened. Every season they make a great start and every season they teeter off towards the end. Hasenhüttl is surely walking on a fine line. Bringing in some young talent this season could be an interesting change of pace for the team, but we still don't see them being too successful this time around. 15, Brentford. Newcomers last season shocked the league with how good they were throughout that first half. However, the form really seemed to dip and teams really seemed to figure them out, and the only way Brentford managed to really stay off relegation was the form of a certain Christian Eriksen. With Eriksen gone and Brentford not really having shored up that creative attacking area, they might still find themselves in the doldrums of the bottom half of the table. Number 14, Wolverhampton Wanderers. A good start of the season trailed off to a pretty mediocre end. Bruno Lage managed to coach an incredible defense, yet the attack just wasn't able to find any space or create as many chances as they needed to climb up the table. With no real attacking changes made this time around, we see them staying down in the bottom half of the table again. Adama Traore, clearly not wanted at Barcelona, comes back to Wolves, but can Lage actually make use of him? 13, Leeds United. Barely managing to stay up last season, Leeds are trying to do their very best to try and not repeat that situation. While the loss of Calvin Phillips and to a much larger extent Rafinha are going to be a big blow to Leeds going forward, they have definitely added a lot of quality depth to their team. With players that Jesse Marsch is familiar with and with the system that he has had time in preseason to prepare, we see Leeds doing much better this time around. 12, Brighton and Hove Albion. Another team that was expected to make that next step into the top 10, Brighton have found themselves struggling to make that final jump. Having lost Bissouma to Spurs, their midfield does look a little bit lighter going into next season, and they haven't really shored up that attacking position either. With a couple of young attackers coming into the team, we still don't see how Brighton will be able to add goals that the team sorely needs to climb up the table. 11, Leicester City. Leicester have had a really steady decline since the highs of winning the Premier League. With Brendan Rodgers starting the project in a very promising way, the last couple of seasons have really seen them take a back foot. Last season especially was really poor for the outcomes, and this season seems no different as Leicester have failed to invest in the transfer market and are still waiting to offload players before they're able to bring new players in. Rodgers does not have the best track record when it comes to transfers, and given the state of the club, we don't see them getting into the top 10 this time around. 10, Crystal Palace. The most important thing that Palace has managed to do is hold on to their talent going into the next season. With the only major loss being Conor Gallagher, who is on loan, they still have an incredible depth in both attack and defense to see them through into next season. An inspired midfield signing along with Wilfried Zaha, who is in the final year of his contract and desperate to prove to his next club that he can make it in the big leagues, this promises to be a good season for Palace. 9, Aston Villa. Villa have probably had one of the most ambitious transfer windows in the middle of the table, bringing in the likes of Philippe Coutinho, Boubacar Kamara and Diego Carlos, shoring up positions in every part of the field. With transfer moves made early and having had a good preseason, Steven Gerrard should really take Aston Villa into the top half next season. 8, Newcastle United. Newcastle United ended the season in top 4 form. Nobody would have thought looking at the table at the end that this team was a relegation threat at any point in time. Given that Eddie Howe gets to start with a clean slate next season, we see Newcastle doing much better. Number 7, West Ham United. Getting into the first European spot, we find ourselves with West Ham United. While they had a great 21-22 season, they still ended up in the Europa Conference League instead of the Europa or the Champions League. With Moyes' tendency to use a small squad and this being a World Cup year, we see fatigue playing a huge role in where West Ham end. They might actually end up going lower than 7th, but with the signing of Scamacca, they have really shored up that attack and a much needed backup or rotation option for Antonio. 6. Manchester United. A new manager with a new system. Big changes at Old Trafford off the pitch may not quite translate to changes on the pitch, however, given that the squad needs a massive turnover in playstyle and personnel. The Cristiano Ronaldo situation definitely does not help. Holding on to the striker means changing their game plan and delaying the Ten Hag revolution, while selling him on means replacing him with an equally talented striker who will buy into the system. We believe that United are still just good enough to stave off advances from West Ham, but not quite good enough to reach into that top 5 yet. 5. Chelsea. Having missed out on a lot of their top targets, there is a lot of turmoil going on behind the scenes at Chelsea. Tuchel has clearly not been happy with how the transfer window has gone so far, and that could prove to be a little troublesome going into the next season. They seem to be linked with all the right players right now, and maybe they can turn the transfer market around, but as it stands, we don't see Chelsea making Champions League football. Number 4 and 3, Arsenal and Spurs. We leave you guys to make the final decision on this one, but this one is a doozy. Arsenal have had an incredible transfer window, getting all the targets that they really aimed for, plus holding on to William Saliba, who will really add a lot of defensive depth. They have gotten players like Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko who come in with winning mentalities and know what it takes to finish in the top 4 and play in the Champions League. Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs have had an impressive window themselves. Most importantly, they have found a backup for Harry Kane who can also deputize in other positions. Having strengthened the midfield and their defense as well, and having Antonio Conte in the dugout helps a lot. Conte is probably one of the best league managers ever, and if it weren't for Liverpool and Manchester City, we would probably have considered them in a running for the title. 2. Liverpool. Missing out on the title yet again, we see Liverpool finishing 2nd for another season in a row. Despite Nunes being a really good signing and having shown some brilliance in that Community Shield fixture, Liverpool still haven't added quite as much as they needed going into the next season. On the back of an exhaustive season where they played every single available game, going into the next season with the World Cup involved might just be asking too much of this team to end up top in that title race. 1. Manchester City. With the incomings of Haaland, Calvin Phillips and Julian Alvarez, Man City seem like they've only strengthened despite having lost some key players from the last few seasons. With 2 world-class players in almost every position on the pitch and with 5 substitutes going into next season, Manchester City's depth will finally come through and help Pep win a 5th Premier League title. And that was our prediction for the Premier League. Let us know what you guys think. If you agree or disagree, put it down in the comments below. Thank you for joining. Bye.